We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall never surrender until, in God's good time, the new world, with all its power and might, steps forth to the rescue and the liberation of people.
In times of universal deceit, truth is the only rebellion left. Good morning and welcome to The Rebellion. Again, thanks for listening to the show. I appreciate all of those who have stuck with us over the years. As I've said before, we're over 700 episodes, most of which were just audio because the Rebellion was being produced for a radio station down in Okmulgee, Oklahoma. But we're starting something new, and that is a podcast that's both obviously audio and visual. So thank you for joining with us if you've been a follower of the Rebellion for some time. If you're new, welcome aboard. Our tagline, in times of universal deceit, truth is the only rebellion left. Our primary goal here on the Rebellion is to pursue the truth, to find out what's right and just and real and true, and to expose lies in our culture today. Today's topic is going to be the issue of Donald Trump's inaugural speech and how the icons of the left, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the whole crew sat through the entire inauguration speech, refused to clap, refused to stand, refused to affirm in any way whatsoever the things that Donald Trump was championing. Now, you may at first blush say, well, that's no surprise. They're Democrats. They're not Republicans. But stop and think about the exact words that Donald Trump used that they refused to applaud. And I think that exposes something very important in our political discussion and the political realities that exist within the United States right now. So that will be the topic. I've titled it, The Democrats Stand for Nothing. The reason I've done that, I think, is obvious, because they refused to stand. They sat. They stared smugly as Donald Trump talked about things such as freedom, freedom of the press, religious freedom, lack of government censorship, making sure that the law is applied fairly and that we're not weaponizing the Justice Department. Things that I would hope every thoughtful American, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, could applaud, could stand for, and could affirm. But those people that I just mentioned refused to do so. That's today's topic. Before we get into the topic, however, I want you to remember that we have a sponsor. The sponsor of the Rebellion is an organization called Equipping the Persecuted. Now, you may have heard of several organizations out there that serve the persecuted church. They all do a good work, but Equipping the Persecuted does something special and unique, and I want you to consider supporting them. Don't send your money to the Rebellion. Don't subscribe to the Rebellion. That's not what we're about. I want you to consider a tax-deductible gift to this 501c3 organization called Equipping the Persecuted. Why? Since their inception, Equipping the Persecuted has reached over 400,000 persecuted Christians in Nigeria. 400,000 persecuted Christians in Nigeria. Many don't know that Nigeria is one of the worst countries in the world for persecuting Christians today. They're killing Christians for their faith. There are orphans scattered across the country because their moms and dads have been killed for being Christians. There are widows by the hundreds, if not the thousands. Why are they widows? Because their husbands were pastors who have been martyred for their Christian faith. Equipping the Persecuted reaches into these homes, into these communities, and provides food, medicine, sanitary supplies, etc. They've also started schools and orphanages for these kids that are without parents. They've served over 200 widows, as I've already mentioned, and the reason they're widows is because their husbands were killed. They've mobilized support efforts for these villages in Nigeria within 48 hours after an attack. And here's something that they do that many organizations like them don't do. And that is they go in and train security teams in these villages across Nigeria. They go in and train the villagers themselves to protect themselves. They provide professional training to security teams so that they can stop the killing before it starts in the first place, basically. They can stop the persecution before they have to respond to it later. That is critical, and it's a critical difference. So if you want to know more about how to help these Christian brothers and sisters in Nigeria, go to Equipping the Persecuted. That's one word, equippingthepersecuted.org. That's equippingthepersecuted.org. Let's get back to the subject, the topic of today's show. As I said, today's show is about Donald Trump's inaugural address. Now, you might be saying this is old news. We've already talked about this thing ad nauseum. What can you say that we haven't already heard? Well, the entire show from here on out is going to be quotations from Donald Trump and what the Democrat leadership did or didn't do as the result of hearing these words. And I think that will tell you a lot about what the heart, mind, and soul of the left, the progressive, the Democrat leadership of our country really is. And I think it's very important to understand this distinction. Martin Luther King Jr. once said this: "A man dies when he refuses to stand for that which is right." One more time. A man dies when he refuses to stand for that which is right. King went on and said, "A man dies when he refuses to stand up for justice. A man dies when he refuses to take a stand for that which is true." Close quote. A man dies when he refuses to take a stand for that which is right. The wisdom of this quote from Dr. King, I think, is prescient. I think it's obvious. It was proven in spades a week ago Monday when Donald Trump gave his inaugural address. If you had any doubt that the Democrat Party's soul is now dead, just consider the behavior of the people I've mentioned: Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton. What was their behavior as the President of the United States delivered his inaugural address? What did they do? Well, consider this. When President Trump said, "I will put America first," they sat. Why can't you stand? Why can't you applaud? Why can't you clap when somebody says, "I want America to be first, and I'll do my best to make it first"? That should be uncontroversial. If you're a Democrat, you should believe in that just as much as a Republican. But they didn't stand. They sat. When the president said, "The weaponization of the Justice Department will end," quote unquote, they sat and they stared. When the president declared that his top priority was to create a proud, this is a quote, "create a proud, prosperous, and free nation," a proud, prosperous, and free nation, these people stayed in their seats. They refused to clap their hands. Proud, prosperous, and free nation? This is controversial? This is political? This is partisan? To have a proud, prosperous, and free nation? When Donald Trump said he intended to give the American people back their faith, and I'm quoting, "their wealth, their democracy, and indeed their freedom." You hear those words? Did you hear those words? To give the American people back their faith, their wealth, their democracy, and their freedom. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, the Clintons, and Barack Obama sat stone-faced and unresponsive. When the president spoke of being grateful to have survived an attempted assassination, they stared with arms folded in a not so thinly veiled attitude of disgust. When he said he believed God had spared his life to make America great again, they gave no response. When President Trump said that he was committed to bringing back hope and prosperity, safety, and peace to every citizen of every race, every religion, every color, and every creed, apparently this is so controversial that the Democrats can't stand for that and refuse to applaud it. It went on and on. When Donald Trump challenged us to never forget our country, our Constitution, remember I'm quoting here, never forget our country, our Constitution, and our God. And when he promised to revive common sense, and when he said he would defend our borders and prosecute crime, they sat smug and sanctimonious. Donald Trump said he would use the full power of federal and state law enforcement to eliminate the presence of all foreign gangs and criminal networks, bringing devastating crime to the soil of the United States. They couldn't support that. They couldn't stand for that. They refused to applaud that. He said that he would direct all members of his cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices for everyone. And what did they do? What did Harris, Obama, the Clintons, and Joe Biden do? They sat with their arms folded defiantly across their chests. They sat. When President Trump said America's inflation crisis has been caused in part by escalating energy prices and that the United States has, and I quote, the largest amount of oil and natural gas of any country on earth, and we're going to use it. They sat. Now, why in the world wouldn't you be for using the natural resources that we have so that we would have energy independence and not be dependent upon our enemies for energy? Does it make any sense to you to be dependent upon Russia for our energy, or Saudi Arabia, or Iraq, or Iran, or China, Venezuela, Colombia? The list goes on and on. Why would we want to be dependent upon them to fuel our economy, to put gas in our cars, and to heat our homes? It makes absolutely no sense. They refuse to stand for energy independence. And don't talk to me about solar panels or wind. It is a fact that over 85% of our energy right now comes from fossil fuels: coal, natural gas, oil. 85% of our fuel comes from coal, natural gas, and oil. We get some of it from hydro dams, such as the Hoover Dam. We get some of it from nuclear, but that's a small portion. The remaining sliver of the pie would come from windmills and would come from solar panels. It's not enough. Did you ever fly in an airplane that was powered by solar or wind? No. Can we have an effective military that's powered by solar or wind? No. Can we have an auto fleet that is dependent upon solar or wind? No. And by the way, your EV, your electric vehicle, gets its power from somewhere. You just don't plug it into the wall and the electricity is produced magically. The electricity that you plug it into is produced by a power plant that is powered by coal, natural gas. It's powered by oil. It's crazy to be dependent upon our enemies for our energy. Our leaders in the Democrat Party could not acknowledge what Donald Trump was saying made any sense. They refused to applaud us being energy independent. When Donald Trump said that he would bring prices down and fill our strategic reserves and export American energy around the world, they sat motionless. When he declared he would revoke EV mandates, electric vehicle mandates, and let Americans buy whatever cars we want, they just glared. When he announced a brand new Department of Government Efficiency, they could hardly contain their disgust. Who would want the government to be efficient? Who would want to spend less money? Apparently not the Democrat leadership. When he promised to immediately sign an executive order to stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America, that's a quote, their faces turned to stone. They don't support free speech. They don't believe in keeping the government out of our lives and stopping the government from censoring the information that we receive, or censoring us, such as me or you, when we want to communicate with somebody else. When he announced that he would restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law, they remained glued to their seats, said nothing, refused to clap. When he said he would end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life, and that as of today, and I quote, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. They just sat. Something that all of us know to be true, and that was true around the world in any conversation that there are two genders, man and woman, male and female, and that a man who pretends to be a woman isn't one and shouldn't be able to steal her sport, steal her identity, steal her privacy, steal her shower, steal her scholarship, and steal her bathroom. That if a dude wants to dress up like a woman and pretend to be one, that's fine, but he can't steal. He can't appropriate unto himself. He can't be guilty of the cultural appropriation of blackfacing a woman, pretending to be a female when he isn't, and get all rights and privileges that a female has accordingly. When Donald Trump says we're going to stop doing all of that nonsense, no applause, no acknowledgement. They sat and they stared. When he committed to keeping our armed forces focused on defeating America's enemies, they sat. When he said we will measure our military not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, he said, by the wars we never get into, they sat. They couldn't even stand and join in ovation when he said this, we the people, we are one people, one family, one glorious nation under God. So to every parent who dreams for their child and every child who dreams for their future, I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you. When he said that, these Democrats, all these Democrats could do was to shamefully sit and stare. Here's my point. When you can't even force yourself to stand for equality, for justice, for constitutional law, when you refuse to applaud free speech, lower inflation, when you refuse to applaud a colorblind society and defending our borders, when you refuse to applaud or stand for the dreams of our children, and everything else I've already mentioned, when you can't even stand and show gratitude that your political opponent survived an assassination attempt, your political party is dead, and so is your soul. These icons of the Democrat Party just showed the entire nation that they stand for nothing, at least nothing except themselves. They communicated to everyone that was watching that they won't even stand for American greatness, common sense, goodness, and what is right and what is true. They proved to you and every other American that they are dead in heart, mind, and soul. This was an embarrassment. It was the quintessential poster child of the sin of omission. You could say they didn't do anything wrong because they didn't do anything, but by omission, by refusing to do anything, by refusing to stand for that which is right, they proved that they have died. Their soul is dead. Back to Martin Luther King and his quote. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "A man dies when he refuses to stand for that which is right. A man dies when he refuses to stand for justice. A man dies when he refuses to take a stand for that which is true." These Democrats refused to take a stand for that which is right, for that which is just, and for that which is true. And they proved that they are dead. Their souls are black as coal. All they care about is power. They don't honor the principles of our constitutional republic that give you the freedom that you enjoy in the first place. I'm Dr. Everett Piper, and this is The Rebellion.